Season 2030, a year to remember. The 2030 season officially began on July 12, 2030, but Nutmeg Sub had already been busy long before then. True to form, manager Mark Thompson made the most of the preseason, organizing several friendlies while strengthening the squad with fresh talent. Determined to build a team capable of competing for the title, Mark scoured the transfer market and added 7 new players to the roster. The recruitment process began in February with the arrival of Mohamed Gabsi from Tunisia and Artur Manukyan from Armenia, both signed on free transfers. In March, the team welcomed Daniel Kouadio from Côte d'Ivoire, followed by 2 local signings in April. Matthew Denkov, formerly of Bako, joined Nutmeg, leaving behind his old club, while Mark Boykov made a similar move, departing eBay Fly to sign for Mark Thompson's side. By June, the squad was further reinforced with Kachik Tadavosyan from Armenia and Kenichiro Nakamura from Japan, completing the transfer window. While Nutmeg had bolstered its ranks, the team also bid farewell to Roger Dame, who left to join Panathina Kings FC in the Solomon Islands. Dam departed with a respectable record of 32 appearances and 7 goals, leaving behind big shoes to fill. The preseason preparations featured 6 friendlies, but the early results didn't inspire much confidence. Nutmeg opened with a draw against KFC and followed it up with a loss to FC Swell, leaving Mark concerned about the team's readiness. However, his worries were quickly alleviated as Nutmeg turned things around spectacularly. They stormed to victory in the next 4 matches, crushing Quad Rejects 6-1, edging Bako 4-2, exacting revenge against KFC 4-3, and demolishing their own U19 team 9-0. By the end of preseason, Nutmeg looked sharp and primed for the season ahead. League campaign, a tale of 2 halves. Nutmeg hit the ground running when the league began, and their opening games made a bold statement. The first match saw them dismantle FC Swell 5-0, combining lethal attacking play with defensive solidity. Their momentum carried into the second match, where they overwhelmed KFC 5-3 despite conceding 3 goals. The third match was even more impressive, a 4-0 victory over eBay Fly, marking their second clean sheet in 3 games. With 3 wins from 3 and an avalanche of goals, Nutmeg looked unstoppable. However, the team's form soon faltered. In their 4th game, they suffered a narrow 1-2 defeat against Spartans, ending their perfect start. This was followed by a 1-1 draw with Quad Rejects and another frustrating 3-3 draw against Spartans 2. For the first time in the season, Nutmeg found themselves struggling to win matches. They finally broke their winless streak in the 7th game, claiming a 3-1 victory over Bako just before the halfway point. Despite the rocky stretch, Nutmeg remained in contention for a playoff spot. At mid-season, they had 14 points, trailing Quad Rejects by 3 but with 2 games in hand. Second half, the push for playoffs. The second half of the season began with renewed determination. Nutmeg scraped a hard-fought 1-0 win over KFC, but their momentum was soon interrupted by a 3-week break, without matches. To maintain match fitness, Mark organized 3 friendlies, producing mixed results, a win, a draw, and a loss. When the league resumed, Nutmeg's struggles returned. A 1-1 draw with FC Swell was followed by a string of scoreless encounters. 0-0 draws against eBay Fly and Spartans 2. The pattern continued with a 2-2 draw against Spartans and a 3-3 draw against Quad Rejects. With 5 games without a win, Nutmeg's playoff hopes began to hang by a thread. Heading into the final match against Bako, Nutmeg had already secured 2nd place with 22 points, but their inability to finish first meant that the league title was out of reach. That final game ended in disappointment as Nutmeg fell 0-3, leaving them to focus on the playoffs as their last shot at silverware. Playoffs, redemption and triumph. In the semifinals, Nutmeg faced Bako, the very team that had defeated them just a week earlier. Determined to avenge that loss, Nutmeg rose to the occasion. With goals on either side of halftime, they claimed a 2-0 victory, securing their place in the final for the first time in 2 years. The final brought them face-to-face with Quad Rejects, a team they had failed to beat in 2 league encounters. The match promised to be a tense affair, and it did not disappoint. Quad struck early, scoring in the 2nd and 28th minutes, but Nutmeg refused to back down. Matthew Denkov ignited the comeback with a goal in the 42nd minute and followed it up with a penalty just before halftime, leveling the score at 2-2. The second half brought more drama as Quad reclaimed the lead, but Michael Da Silva equalized in the 71st minute, pushing the match into extra time. Neither side managed to break the deadlock in extra time, leaving the championship to be decided by penalties. The shootout was filled with tension. Quad missed their first attempt, but Nutmeg's Jinyi Sadaka failed to capitalize. Both teams converted their next 3 penalties, but when Quad's McAvoy saw his shot saved by Nutmeg's keeper Brooker, the stage was set. Joel Knight had the chance to seal the win, but struck the post, prolonging the agony. Finally, after another Quad miss, Michael Da Silva stepped up. Calm and composed, he sent the keeper the wrong way, securing Nutmeg's first ever league title. A season of resilience. Despite facing setbacks and inconsistency throughout the season, Nutmeg's determination carried them through. They earned a playoff spot, overcame adversity, and emerged as champions in dramatic fashion. For Mark Thompson, this victory was the culmination of years of hard work and perseverance. At long last, he could lift the trophy he had chased since the beginning of his Marshall Islands chapter. With the title secured, Mark could finally enjoy a 6-month break, reflecting on the journey that brought him here. But as one story ends, another begins. The question now is, what's next for Mark Thompson in his Oceanian Odyssey?